justice.
Then the perpetrators of the crises, i.e. both regulators and individuals, will face justice soon. We had to take painful but necessary measures to sanitize and save the banking system.
We have exclusive details as former Beige Capital boss begins tonight's time behind bars as the circuit court remands it. Stay with us.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion, also brought to you by Gasem Cement, the nation builder. Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready. Well, details are now beginning to emerge about the state's criminal case against the former UT boss, Prince Kofi Amwabeng, and the former Beige Capital boss, Michael Onyenaku. Both gentlemen today were hauled before the Crown Circuit Court and charged, among other things, with money laundering and stealing. We're beginning to learn a lot more about what the state's case is against them. We'll be going into the documents we've secured, the court documents we've secured for you tonight, and what we're also beginning to learn about the plan going forward. And it clearly, from what we're learning, it's the first blow in what will then, our sources tell us, a government concerted strategy to go after people they believe were responsible for the banking collapse that had happened since 2017. More on that shortly. In fact, the president himself was today speaking about these issues just before the case went to court and we got wind of it. Listen to the president detailing his government's plans for dealing with the individuals they suspect had something to do with the banking collapse.
We have begun bringing those responsible for the banking crisis to justice. We have one case in court, and if prima facie evidence of criminality is found in the other ongoing investigations, which according to my information is likely, then the perpetrators of the crisis, i.e. both regulators and individuals, will face justice soon. We had to take painful but necessary measures to sanitize and save the banking system. In effect, 12.58 billion Ghana cedis of public funds was injected into the 9 banks and microfinance institutions following their malfunction. It is worthy to note, however, that the jobs of some 6,500 workers were saved as a result, instead of the 10,000 that could have been lost, in addition to the protection of funds of 4.6 million depositors. We've also ensured the creation of a strong set of indigenous banks. The latest banking sector report of the Bank of Ghana reveals that as of October 2019, the banks posted a profit of 2.9 billion cedis, representing a 45% increase over that of 2018, as the reforms initiated by the central bank begin to take effect. We now live in a pivot.
I want to quickly go through the charges as we got to know of today that has been slapped on Prince Kofi Amwabeng, who is the former UT boss, and also Mr. Michael Onyenaku, who is a former CEO of Beige Capital. My colleague Parker Wilson was in court. Parker, run us through these charges.
Okay, so for Kofi Amwabeng, 2 charges: one, stealing, contrary to Section 124 of the Criminal Offences Act. And according to the police prosecutors, between the year 2009 and 2017, Mr. Mabin dishonestly appropriated the sum of over 51 million Ghana cedis, the property of UT Bank. And then charge 2, we are told that money laundering. And again, between the same year, 2009 and 2017, he converted a sum of 51 million Ghana cedis, knowing it to be the proceeds of crime. So these were the charges leveled against Mr. Prince Kofi Amabin today in court. Now, Evans, when he arrived in court this afternoon, he looked quite calm, not really perturbed. And I spoke to those who accompanied him to court, and they tell me that they were quite surprised that he received a call from the police prosecutor asking that he reports to the court this afternoon, because the case has been with the CID and he's been cooperating over the years gone by. So we hung around for quite about an hour before the judge himself walked to the courtroom to hear the case. And so the case was called. He was in a docket. The police prosecutors made the argument that they wanted the court to compel him to deposit his passport and also ensure that he reports to the police two times in a week. So preferably that is Mondays and Fridays. So the lawyer for Mr. Kofi Amabin argued that, well, his client over the years gone by has been cooperating with the Ghana Police Service, especially the CID. Also, Iyoko has been investigating this matter, and he's been available anytime he's been called upon to assist with investigation. In fact, he said that there were times that Mr. Mabin was out of the country and he was called upon to assist with investigation. He cut off the trip and returned to the country to assist with the investigation. And again, he's quite surprised that they caught his client, a case that is ongoing. Investigation is yet to be concluded, but his client has been brought to court to be tried. I mean, he doesn't really understand, but he's pleading with the court to grant him bail because, one, the place of abode for Mr. Amabin is here in Ghana. He doesn't have anywhere to go. He has quite a number of companies dotted across the country, and there's no reason that he will leave the country. I mean, fold all the companies up and then run away. So he wants the judge to grant him bail.
And the judge granted him bail.
He did. In fact, he responding to the lawyer, he said that he was quite convinced with what the lawyer said, and that granted him bail to the sum of 110 million Ghana cedis.
10 million
Ghana cedis.
Did he also confiscate his passport and other?
Yes,
other
in fact, that was part of the judgment that he should deposit his passport as well, and also report to the police 2 times in a week.
The former Beige Capital CEO was not as lucky. We'll come to what happened with his bail application, but what charges are against him? On the what is it that he's been charged with?
You mean the former Beige Capital boss?
Mr. Nyenako.
Yeah, same charges, stealing and money laundering. I mean, these were the charges leveled against Mr. Nyenako.
If you look at the money laundering charge, the details as they have it is that he again the 51,000,
right?
51 million,
51 million.
Then in the case of Prince Amabin, $8.6 million, right? Knowing it to be proceeds of crime, and that between 2009 and 2017 in Accra, he converted that sum, the sum of 51 million and 8 million. He converted it, knowing that they were proceeds of crime, and that's the thing against it. So both of them are facing.
And that was the amount he dishonestly appropriated as part of the UT Bank property, according to the police prosecutors.
So that's the allegation against it. So both gentlemen have been slapped with stealing and money laundering.
You're correct.
But Prince Amabin got bail. Mr. Nyenako failed to get bail. What happened in this case?
Okay, so his lawyer almost made the same argument as the lawyer for Prince Amabin, indicating that his clients has also been available. But unfortunately for the lawyer, the judge said that he was not convinced with what he's saying. He hasn't proven to the court that when the client is needed at any point in time, he will produce him for a further interrogation and investigation. And so because of that, they are going to remand him to police custody for a week. And when they return, they cannot look at the bail condition. But for now, he should be in the police custody. So he was asked to go and sit beside the police prosecutor and ensure that, they carry on with the judgment. But the lawyer, Evans, I must say, was quite upset with the decision of the judge, knowing very well that he's convinced the judge to let him grant bail to his client, but the judge refused his plea.
And so what we expect to happen tonight, and from what we are learning, is that Mr. Mike Enyinako will spend tonight behind bars.
That has been confirmed.
And this is going to last for a week. When is the case being called again?
On 22nd of January.
Okay, so he's going to be in behind bars until that time.
That's
when
correct.
The case goes back to court. Thank you very much. I want to bring in my colleague Joseph Boku-Gakpo, because we're beginning to learn a bit more about the case, really, the facts that the case the state has built against the two gentlemen in question. Let's start with Michael Enyinako. We heard a lot already about Kofi Amwabeng right now, but also from previous documents that we had secured here. But there appears to be a lot that the state has already compiled on Mr. Enyinako. And this is the former CEO of Beige Capital. What is it that the Attorney General's office claims he's done?
So this is a case that's coming from the time when Beige Capital tried to acquire another firm, the First African Savings and Loans Company. And from what we're gathering, according to the investigators, as far as this case is concerned, the Beige Group, which is a subsidiary entity to the Beige Bank, in the latter part of the year 2017, had deliberations with the leadership of another firm. It's called the First African Savings and Loans, to acquire a 90% equity share in the savings and loans entity. Now, the value of those particular shares were put at $2.5 million US. Now, we're gathering that the discussions led to the preparation of various documentations in order to formalize that particular process. And we are gathering that the Beige Group eventually paid 9 million Ghana cedis as part of the payment in order to purchase the shares from the First African Savings and Loans Company. Now, this was actually confirmed, we gather, in a letter which was written by the then officer in charge of that particular company, the managing director of the First African Savings and Loans. That's someone we all know, Gifty Afeni Dazi, to the chief executive of the Beige Group, confirming that those particular processes had actually been almost completed, and the two companies then agreed that the leadership will write to the Bank of Ghana to regularize the particular process. Then, according to the documents that we've gathered, the Beige Group actually deployed an officer called Vanessa Kofa-Achu to serve as the responsibility officer in order to, what they describe as, propagate the beige culture within the confines of the First African Savings and Loans setup at the headquarters, and as well as some other employees.
They also sent other employees, and if you read the state's case against them, this was all part of, advancing the Beige Group's interest.
Yeah,
and as they described it as a practice, normal practice, that now that the First African Savings and Loans is a subsidiary, they also open an account with the Beige Bank.
Exactly. So the account was open,
and this is where it starts getting interesting.
Now let me move on to where it gets interesting. Now, according to the case of the investigators, unknown to the authorities are the First African Savings and Loans Company, which is the company that the Beige Group was acquiring the 90% equity in. The Beige Group secretly opened a second account in the name of the First Allied Savings and Loans as what they call a control account, and it had an outstanding amount of 299 million Ghana cedis in that particular account as at the time that the Beige Group actually went into receivership. And the account was opened by some officials, including one Susanna Phillips, and a number of others who are being described as suspects in this particular case. And according to the documentation, it was all done with the explicit directive of Benjamin Hineku, who is actually Mike Hineku, who is actually the officer in charge of the Beige Group. Now, the documents claim that the account is said to have had funds of up to 340 million Ghana cedis in it initially, but some of the monies totaling 21 million Ghana cedis were transferred to affiliate entities of the Beige Group and a number of others.
And they go through, I mean, several of the affiliates got several amounts. So, for example, we had a company such as Beige Care got 392,000.
Yes,
and you had Venture an amount of 1.7 million.
Beige Academy got an amount of 250,000 Ghana cedis.
So
Beige
according to the
Capital
state, they started sharing the
2.2.
money, around. Now, the state goes on to say that the withdrawals from the this particular account were at the behest, as you just noted, of Michael Yinako. And there were other suspects who they claimed facilitated this. One, Yvonne Nana Phillips, Yadom Boache Augustine. They claimed that they co-signed the documents instructing transfer of funds from the false accounts to the beneficiaries. And one such request was made to the Consolidated Bank. We know that bank sort of brought all the, dissolved banks together. And this is as recent as 2008.
So this is more than a year after the Beige Group had actually gone into receivership and had been taken over by the Consolidated Group.
And then withdrawing money from
there was the attempt to make that particular withdrawal from that account.
And this amount in question was 38 million. They wanted to take 38 million out from the false account into the Beige Capital Asset Management Limited account at the head office. Now, but it gets interesting, because it appears that Madame Gifty didn't know anything about this.
That's what the document is saying.
She went ahead to alert that something was wrong.
So the leadership of the First African Savings and Loans, led by Gifty Afenyidazi, the attention was drawn to the transfer request, and they denied that they had any knowledge of it. And just for the records, they ordinarily should have had knowledge of it, because then there was a process in order to acquire First African Savings and Loans. But it should have been the account. Yeah. It should have been except that from the court document again, it was opened secretly by the Beige Capital officials without the consent of the First African Savings and Loans. So Madame Gifty Afenyidazi challenged the amount in question, which far exceeded what they had in the accounts, and that's when investigations commenced, which eventually revealed that this said account was what is being described as a false account, which had been created without the consent and knowledge of the authorities at the First African Savings and Loans, and hence then the investigations kicked in, and the documents say those investigations are still
and
ongoing.
They knew nothing about this. The owners of the account, those who were supposed to own the account, didn't know anything about this according to the documents. But if you come to, and that is the Beige Capital man's case, he is currently behind bars. He's been remanded. His freedom has been curtailed for a week. Prince Kofi Amabeng is on bail. The case against him is a simpler one, and it has to do with work done by the Special Investigations Team
at the Price Waterhouse-Coopers. So the documents say that the Special Investigative Team, they received a report from the Price Waterhouse-Coopers through the Governor of the Bank of Ghana into what is being described as suspicious transactions relating to UT Bank, and that UT engaged in what is being described as off-balance sheet transactions, login issuing investment certificates to investors in the name of the bank. However, when that was done, an amount totaling 51.3 million Ghana cedis and another 8.6 million US dollars were later transferred to UT Holdings after those certificates were issued. And according to the investigators, it was disclosed that UT Bank issued investment certificates in the name of the bank, although the amounts were never credited to the customer's accounts, but then it was transferred to UT Holdings, which is being described as the mother company. And the investigators say when they looked further into this, it was revealed that Prince Kofi Amabeng, who was then the chief executive of UT, he signed on most of the investment certificate for the customers, and he did that and subsequently also authorized the said transfer to the UT Holdings, and that the investigations they've done further reveal that the monies had moved on to the UT Holdings, and most of the investment to the UT Bank were actually what was absorbed by the Ghana Commercial Bank as part of the takeover that happened a few years ago. However, they had a situation where the rates of interest which were subsequently issued had to be renegotiated and all. So the point is, we had a situation where there was investment that was being done by various customers, and certificates were issued to them, and the expectation was that the said amount should have been credited to their accounts as monies that they were holding on to in terms of those who made those investments. But the investigations had revealed that instead of the amount being credited to the accounts, the monies were moved to UT Holdings, which is actually the mother company of UT Bank, which is why the investigators are raising issues with those transactions.
Let's break this down a bit more. Let's bring in Mr. Joe Jackson with Dayless Finance. He's been looking at the documents together with us and joins us to help us break it down. Mr. Jackson, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Good evening to your listeners, and today is a sad day because even though I've been one of the most vociferous persons to demand that those responsible be held to the reckoning, it's sad when people you know are charged, and it's a really sad thing. But in any case, we still have to retrieve our money. So we want to understand what the charges are.
Exactly. So you've read the details as we've secured from the courts. Let's start with Prince Amabe. What's your understanding? Because a lot of financial jargon in there. What's your understanding in simple terms? What the state is claiming he's done? At this point, it's all allegation, though. What is the state alleging that he's done?
First of all, the state is alleging that he took transactions were off balance sheet. That simply means that you engaged in transactions, but you did not record it in your reports to either the owners of to the public or to the central bank. That's what it really means. That these transactions were done on the blind side of their financial reports. That in the case of UT should go to SEC, should go to the central bank, and should be published in the newspapers. These particular transactions were not reported. That's what it simply means.
And in your field, what is wrong with that?
Well, remember that you're supposed to do a lot. It has to do with transparency and making sure that what you send out as your reports are actually accurate representations of what happened. And if you take these transactions and you put them off balance sheet, then effectively what you're doing is you are either under or over reporting one aspect or the other of your transactions, and that has ramifications.
Let's talk about the facts that we've now been, talking about as regards to Beige Capital Bourse. And that is quite elaborate from what we've been reading. In simple terms, the accusation is what?
In simple terms, the accusation is that they opened an account in the name of First Allied, which First Allied they don't know anything about, and used that account to transfer money to other entities that they control.
And the allegation is that the original signatories did not know that first there was an account like that in their name, and there was such a huge amount in it because they were not expecting that amount of in excess of 300 million in that account. I mean, from the transaction was what, $2.5 million, but yes, significantly more was in this secret account that was being dissipated over time.
Let's break it down simply. It just means that somebody opened an account in an organization's name, made transfers into the account, and transfers out without the knowledge of that institution. It's as simple as that.
And I'm curious, though. I mean, how is that even possible? I mean, with all these scrutiny in the sector, how can that happen? If it's true, well, these are all allegations. But if indeed,
one of the interesting things we would like to know, and it's not stated in the charge sheet, is how were the transfers made into the account in the first place? And what is also not clear was why did they have to open a First Allied account and not use an account within the Beige account? Why did they have to use a First Allied account? Unfortunately, the charges, although elaborate, are still not clear on those two issues. And those two issues will be either Aspan Group's as we go on, I'm sure there will be questions asked either by there'll be further explanation either by the prosecution or the defense will ask a lot of questions. Where did the supposed inflows come from? And why did they have to use the First Allied account in the first place? Since they could have created these accounts in any different name. Why First Allied? I must admit it's not clear. What is worrying, though, that this continued to take place even after all the way into 2018, when Consolidated Bank was even involved. So those are the worrying parts there. There's several worrying parts. So they try to move some money even after from these accounts to other institutions that they were controlled. And of course, it's a very messy situation, really. It's messy. I must admit that the brief facts are not as clear as they don't make the issue any easier to understand at the moment, and we are looking forward to getting more information.
I'm grateful, Mr. Jackson, for breaking it down for us. Thank you very much. And so that is the case against Mr. Prince Amabeng and the Mr. Nyenako with the former Beige CEO. Mr. Amabeng himself had previously spoken about the happenings at UT Bank when he was there and after he had left, and he put a significant part of the blame at the doorsteps of the central bank. Listen to him speak recently at an event that we had organized here at Multimedia.
And I'll be straight about it, as I said. In UT's case, about a month to UT's closure, we had a meeting with the Bank of Ghana. And we were promised that with that, the investor we brought, within a few weeks, we were going to evaluate it and then get back to us so we have an EGM to inform our shareholders. And we're a listed company. Now, 1 week to the 14th of August, when UT was surrogated, a letter was written by Bank of Ghana to our investor that they didn't like the investment. We were not even copied, but that investor was our investor. Then you look at the way UT was arrogated. It didn't need policemen at dawn 6 a.m. as if it's a rolling school. And then GCB staff and the press at 6 a.m. to close the bank, and then go and destroy the signages as if it's some satanic shrine. Now, why I'm saying that is that is not how banks are closed down. And
well, that is Mr. Prince Amabeng speaking recently about these developments. We have more when it comes to the dealings and the happenings with the financial sector generally, including a Joy News exclusive detailing a finance ministry directive to the Securities and Exchange Commission, directing them to revoke the licenses of many fund management companies, and the particular reference was made to Gold Coast Fund Management Limited, and a reason cited was a fear that if the firms are not closed down, it could make the government unpopular. Details of that on Newsnight shortly.